welcome to my studio. My name is Michelle Moore, and today I am going to show you a simple project for the upcoming 4th of July holiday. So I'm making some ribbons that have indigo stars, Japanese indigo stars, all over them, so that I can tie them up and hopefully make like a fun little banner with some indigo stars and then some other naturally dyed fabrics. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I need some ribbons. So you can do this with a variety of fabrics as long as they are a woven fabric versus a knit. So as long as you have a woven fabric, this is actually a silk cotton blend that I had in my studio space. So I'm using this because it's a really beautiful fabric, and Indigo loves silk. It works really well with it. So I'm going ahead and make some ribbons from this. So and again, you could do this with just about any woven fabric as long as it's, not too thick, but even canvas you can still rip. So I have my piece of fabric. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut a small slit on one end where I want to tear. So I want ribbons that are maybe like 1.5 inches wide. It's not a perfect science like most things I do, but all I'm going to do now is rip. And this is kind of like the scary part, because you think, oh, it's going to rip in some kind of crazy way and it's going to ruin my whole yardage of fabric, but it's not. You just rip and you will end up with a beautiful torn edge ribbon. So now with this I can do it becomes my blank canvas for creating. So in this case I am going to make these little stars. So I'm going to lay out my ribbon on my surface here, and I'm going to make myself a little star stencil. So I just have a little piece of cardboard. You can use plastic. Sometimes I use like containers that I have left over as a little stencil, means of making a stencil, or sometimes I'll use whatever really I have on hand. I've used foam, I've used all kinds of things. So you can use what works for you, and you'll get different effects based on the material that you choose. But I just have this star punch, and I'm going to punch out a star. So I have this little star now that you can see, and I'm going to put it onto my fabric, lay it right onto the surface, and this is the fun part. So I have a bunch of Japanese indigo leaves. I've just been pinching off the tops. I'm just going to pop them dry a little bit on my apron here. And then all I'm going to do is roll. I like to roll them up. I roll up the leaves. I kind of will take some of the more woody stem off. And then I have a little bundle. So I use 3 leaves. And I'm just going to hold down my stencil firmly. And I'm going to rub back and forth over the surface of the fabric and the stencil, trying not to let the fabric move too much or the stencil move too much. So if I do it correctly, you'll end up with a star. So that's where I will now go ahead and continue the process several more times. I'll also move to the edges. So not every print that you make needs to be a perfect full star. You want to kind of make it look like it was torn from, a bigger piece of fabric. So I'm kind of thoughtful with my placement of each stencil so that I can get nice coverage and it looks, how I want it to look. So you'll see as I'm working, the stars right now are really very green. They need to oxidize to become this really beautiful turquoise, which is what I'm looking for my banner that I'm making, my festive little holiday banner. So I'm going to keep working on this and hopefully something pretty will come from this. Okay, so I finished creating this one that I was working on just a few moments ago. You can see the difference. This one's begun the oxidation process, so it has a little bit more teal qualities, and here you can kind of see them, next to each other. So there's definitely quite a difference, more so in person than I think through the video. But so I am going to keep going. I want to make a few more of these stars, but I also want to just do some blue ribbons to kind of like bulk it up and hang in between. So I only have a little pile of leaves that I gathered. I pinched the tops this morning, which will help the plants grow bigger, and also gives me an indication as to how they're doing and how much blue is in them. So I'm going to do a couple different techniques. So this one, I'm just going to rub the indigo leaves just right onto the surface. I'm not going to use a stencil. I'm not going to use anything. I want the fabric to have more of a textural, look, and I just want to get some good blue turquoise color on here, so I'm not really too concerned. I want it to kind of have like a weathered look. I don't want it to be perfect flat dye. So I am going to just kind of take these couple leaves and, like I said, just rubbing. And if you want to, go in a certain direction and get some of that grain kind of going, you can do that. And it's pretty amazing how far just like a couple leaves can go. And then if you want to do like the underside too, based on how you're going to use these ribbons, you might want to like do the back too. So, and it really doesn't take long to get, some good coverage. So I'm going to work on this guy. That's number 2. So for my last ribbon, all I'm doing is I've taped off some areas to give me some horizontal lines, and I'm just rubbing some of the indigo leaves in between the taped areas. So the tape will act as a resist, and then we'll have color in between those areas of resist. So then when you peel off the tape, hopefully we'll leave with some nice horizontal lines like that. So I'm not really worried about how much space is in between them. I want it to be, this is a homemade piece, so it doesn't have to have perfect spacing and perfect everything. We're not in it for perfection. We're in it for, creation. So I'm going to just keep reusing my tape. So I just have a few pieces cut, and I'm just going to keep moving them along as I go and creating those stripes along this ribbon. So that's where I'm at. And here you see some of the finished ribbons and how they started to oxidize after being washed. To complete the banner, I'm using madder root to dye additional ribbons that I tied up and will hang with the rest of the finished design.